Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my home. My name is Hannah and today I'm going to be making a vegan seitan steak with a miso lentil gravy. These recipes are from this book, Isa Does It. It is absolutely my favorite vegan cookbook. If you are vegan or trying to go vegan and you're trying to find just some simple, delicious recipes you can make every day of the week, this is the book for you. I'm going to start by making the seitan. I make it a little bit different than what's in the recipe, so you're welcome to follow along with me or make it however you like. I've already have on my stove warming up 8 cups of vegetable broth with 6 smashed garlic cloves and about a 1/4 cup of soy sauce. And so that's just heating up. I'm going to put in about 3 tablespoons of chickpea flour. This was in another recipe for seitan that I've used, and I just really liked the chickpea flour. I felt like it gave it just a little bit of a lighter consistency. And then the recipe is for 2 cups of vital wheat gluten. I always double this recipe. The seitan freezes really well, so this is a great option for something that you can make once, put in your freezer, and take out in pieces as you go along. So I'm actually going to put 4 cups of vital wheat gluten in here. And I'm just going to go refill my jar. I actually purchase my vital wheat gluten in bulk from my local bulk food store and keep a big box of it in my garage. So I'll be back to refill this. The next part of this recipe is 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. I like to buy tomato paste in larger cans, and then anything that I don't use, I actually put into tablespoon size pieces or chunks, and I freeze those as well. And just I freeze them on a plate, and then I put them in a little, once they're frozen, I put them in a little baggie in tablespoon size pieces, and that just makes it really easy to grab a single tablespoon later and not have to worry about, not using a whole jar for a recipe. So there we go. There's 4 tablespoons of tomato paste. I've got my 4 cups of vital wheat gluten, 4 tablespoons of tomato paste. I'm going to need 2 cups of water and a 1/2 cup of soy sauce. So I've got my soy sauce here. And now I'm going to need 2 cups of water and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And I'm using bottled lemon juice, but obviously if you have fresh lemons at home, that would also be a great option. Last but not least, the final ingredient in this is nooch. Now, the recipe calls for 5 tablespoons. I usually just eyeball it, and I love nooch. I think it's every vegan's favorite food. So I think that just the rest of that jar will probably be fine. And now we're going to mix it up. And you'll see the vital wheat gluten, it's gluten, right? So it's very high in protein, but it also is like very stringy. So you're going to have to knead it quite a lot, and it's going to get a very strange consistency. before it becomes kind of able to get into a ball. Here you can see it's not fully incorporated. At some point, I'm gonna have to just get in there with my hands. This becomes this like sticky, stringy, weird mass that's really hard to stir with a spoon. So now I'm just gonna go in here with my hands and knead this for a few minutes while I wait for my my broth to come to a boil. When you're actually simmering the seitan, once you put it into the broth, it's super, super important that you keep it to a very bare simmer. If you let this boil, it will get waterlogged and it will expand quite a lot, and it makes a very weird texture. It kind of has like the texture of brains a little bit. And if you've ever made seitan and you've overboiled it, you'll know what I mean. And it just doesn't taste very nice. It tastes really weird and watery. So I'm just going to keep kneading this for a while until hopefully I can get kind of to a spot where I can form this into somewhat of a ball, some ball shapes, probably 6 or 7. And you can see all of that protein in the vital wheat gluten is starting to link up and create these long chains. And that's what kind of gives it that meaty, kind of chewy texture. Now that I have a somewhat cohesive mass, I'm going to break it up into balls, kind of big, probably like, you know, navel orange size. And try and get those like somewhat contained to help prevent them getting waterlogged. So I just go around like you're making a roll, kind of tightening the outside and pushing all of the bits into the middle. Trying to get kind of a cohesive ball. I know this looks totally disgusting, but it does taste really good. It's also a much more economical way to get seitan. Purchased it at the store before, and it tastes good, but it's really expensive, and there's a lot of packaging involved, a lot of waste. So this is a way to do it, much less waste at home, and much more cost effective. So I can hear my water's boiling. I'm going to go and rinse off my hands and start putting these into the water. Now you can see my broth is at a little bit of a bare simmer here, and I'm just going to add in some of my seitan. I've got some bigger and some smaller. That's okay. And I'm probably going to do half. I'm going to do it in 2 batches. So I'll put in half now, and then I'll come back and I'll do the other half in another batch. And this is going to simmer here for about 45 minutes, and I'm going to try and watch it closely to prevent it from boiling. I'll be back to show you when I take these out, but in the meantime, I'm going to partially cover this, and I'm going to move on to making my gravy. Now that I've got my seitan all steaming or all simmering in my pot, I'm going to move on to making my gravy. First thing I'm going to do is put some oil in here and add my onions. It's 1 medium onion diced. This gravy recipe is absolutely one of my favorite vegan gravies. It is really, really great, and it's almost as good as my favorite mushroom gravy. So definitely up there in the top 2, but if you don't like mushrooms, this one's the way to go. I'm going to saute my onions until they're turning brown, and then I'm going to add in my garlic and sage and thyme. Now that my onions are all nicely browned, I'm going to add in my garlic and thyme and sage. So I'm going to do have a heaping teaspoon of dried thyme, and maybe I have a half teaspoon of sage, and then my garlic. I'm going to let that cook for just a couple more seconds, and then I'm going to add a cup of vegetable broth and the miso and the lentils. This recipe calls for 1.5 cups of cooked lentils. I cooked these when I was doing meal prep earlier in the week. And 2 tablespoons of miso. I'm just going to stir and heat this through, and then I'm going to immersion blend it so it's nice and smooth. Now that my gravy is all warm, I'm just going to blitz it up with my trusty immersion blender. Now that I've gotten it nice and smooth, I'm going to put it back on the heat, and I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of water mixed with 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. And this is just going to give that kind of silky feeling. And if you ever make a cornstarch slurry, make sure that you use cold water. If you add in hot water, it'll seize immediately, and then you'll get a very gloopy mass. And it's always important to mix it with water outside of your pot, because if you just add the cornstarch directly in, it will solidify and you won't have a nice creamy sauce. So I'm going to leave this to simmer for about 7 to 10 minutes, and before I do that, I'm going to add some pepper. And then we'll come back and show you the finished product along with our finished seitan. Our timer for our seitan has gone off, so I'm going to grab a piece out Just cut it open and make sure, looks like it's all cooked. So we're good to go. I'm going to pull the rest of these out, and then I'm going to put another batch in. Now that our gravy is thickened, it's time to serve. I've just taken some of my Seitan, sliced it up, and I'm just going to add a lot of gravy on top. This makes a really great weeknight meal with just a little bit of sauteed broccoli or some roasted Brussels sprouts or whatever vegetable you like. It's salty and umami, and it really hits that meat and gravy craving that I know a lot of vegans have. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoy making this recipe in your own home, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.